I was 15 and I'm deaf, but can speak in sign. Growing up, there was a house next to my aunt, an old abandoned house with 2 floors and a basement. The toured wire fence in the ground, me and my cousin loved to explore because my aunt had a large land reaching the end of the woods. So one day me and my cousin decided to check out the old house because there was no back door since it was ripped off. We entered the living room filled with old furniture and such. It was clear that someone just walked out without taking anything with them. My 12-year-old cousin suddenly felt afraid because it was dark, but I was determined to explore some more. So we made our way up the stairs checking if each step was safe by using a large heavy rock, so when we reached the top, the hall was empty, and there were 3 rooms and 1 bathroom. So I decided to check out the closest room holding my cousin's hand. The first room was clean, almost as if no one ever touched it. The window with no dust on, it felt like I was looking at a new house. Then we moved on to the second room, dirty and the walls were rotting. There is a bed in the middle of the room covered in leaves and dark brown stains, and the bed frame falling apart. As we were standing in the doorway of the third room, I felt uneasy, almost as if someone was watching us, and I had an urge to throw up. My cousin complained of a rotting smell that wasn't there before. My instinct told me to turn around. I did. There was a black transparent figure in a wheelchair in the first room was clean. Just staring at me, my cousin froze in the spot as I signed to him that someone was at the end of the hall watching us. Then, a voice popped up in my head, "Under the cross." I was horrified and grabbed my cousin and ran out. As we crossed the wire fence, we found a fresh-looking cross in the ground in front of the back entrance. So my cousin, who is very germphobic, makes us wear gloves when we explore. I was thankful that he made us wear it, so I had the confidence to pick up the cross gently, and I was confused as to what the voice meant. I put the cross back and we arrived at my aunt's porch where my family gathered around. We explained to my uncle and he decided to check it out because he knew the land like the back of his hand. He grabbed the shovel and dug where the cross was. He found a cardboard box, opening it up, and there was a deceased cat wrapped in a beautiful pink blanket that I recognized as part of the bed set upstairs in the old house. The box had a note, plastic flowers, and a spell jar surrounding the cat. My uncle, a kind big man, decided to grab a wooden box from the shed and clean it out before putting the cat and the rest of the items in the box, making sure the cat would be comfortable in the afterlife. He read the note, finding out the cat had a name, Snow, a 16-year-old cat with white fur. My uncle buries the cat and uses a special tool to carve the name of the cat on the cross. After my uncle questioned his neighbor about the cat, he found out that the cat had hung around that house ever since it was abandoned. As we know, the house is heavily monitored 24/7 by my uncle and patrol cars. So after checking the cameras, no one buried that cat. The cross just shows up out of the air. To this day, I'm 19, and my family would often see a ghosty white cat hanging around the property. The house was torn down years later, and my cousins still see black figures and wheelchairs in the middle of the woods. A couple of summers ago, me and some of my buddies would go to a large abandoned factory that had been burned down to smoke and hang out together without anyone bothering us. The front of the factory was still standing, and we had found an entrance into the front, and we had all been inside multiple times except one of us. This night was just like any other night without anything unusual about it. Somehow the topic of mystical creatures had come up, and I asked my buddy Jay what skinwalkers were and if he believed in them. He was very shocked and told me not to say it out loud again, to which I said, "What? Skinwalker?" To which I was told, "Dude, shut the F up." I found it amusing that he and my other buddies Justin and Bobby took something so silly and so serious. I let it go, but my other friend Tristan wanted to poke some more fun at them. "Oh no, look at me," he said before he began to whistle and mockingly say "Skinwalker" a couple of times while simultaneously walking into the middle of the factory. This part of the factory was burnt down and had no roof or walls. It was just some grass in the middle and bricks around the perimeter. I'm watching Tristan walk into the middle of the factory when he suddenly stops and freezes. I'm still looking at him, trying to figure out what he's doing. He then begins to walk back and looks at me and throws his hand in the air while pointing in a circular motion as he mouths some words that I couldn't understand. I said, "What?" and he repeated himself more clearly and said, "Get in the car." To which everyone except me frantically did. We took 2 separate cars to the factory, so I drove Justin and Tristan to where Justin's car was so they could both leave. Justin hops out of my car and sprints to his and starts his car. Tristan opens the back door to get what I believe he told me was his jacket and gets up to go to the passenger's seat of the car, but before he can even take a step his head darts to the left and he then jumps in the back seat of the car and screams, "Drive," and they speed off. At this current moment, I'm a little scared but mostly confused about what's going on. I didn't take off very fast because I had to turn my car around to start driving toward the exit. I'm now looking in my rearview mirror at Jay and Bobby, asking them what had happened or if they saw why Tristan jumped in the back seat. I see Bobby turn his head around in my rearview mirror to look behind us, and shortly after he whips his head back around and screams super loud, "Dude, floor it," and I do. We all end up rendezvousing at a local market to figure out what had happened. I asked Tristan what had freaked him out so much. This honestly really concerned me because neither one of us was superstitious at all. He told me and the others that he heard something like a twig snapping when he froze and looked toward the front of the building, which only had 2 staircases on the left and right side and an elevator shaft in the middle. He then explained that he saw a silhouette of a tall, thin person on the highest floor in the middle of the building where the doors would have been, and then disappearing. Tristan had never been inside though, so he thought he saw someone standing on the 3rd floor, to which Jay explained that there was no floor there and that it was an empty elevator shaft. We are all shaken up now. I also asked him why he screamed at Justin and jumped into the back seat of his car, to which he explained he heard what he thought was someone or something sprinting towards his direction and that's why he jumped in. I then asked Bobby why he asked me to floor it, to which he said that he saw some long, skinny, humanoid-looking thing sprinting at my car on all 4s really fast. And that's my story. I think maybe it could have been some homeless person sprinting on all 4s at my car, but that doesn't explain Tristan seeing the silhouette of someone standing in an empty elevator shaft. One day, me and my friend wanted to go exploring around the surrounding parts of my neighborhood. We lived in a suburban town in western Pennsylvania and nothing really bad happens around here. I was about 16 at the time of this event and remember it vividly. So, on this day, we heard about an abandoned house right across the highway that had been deserted for years. Being young and adventurous at the time, my friend and I were excited to check out this place. We rode our bikes to where the house was located. The house was semi-covered by overgrown trees and vines and the house was an eerie gray color. We parked our bikes behind the house to where the backyard was so we wouldn't be seen by any neighbors. This house was surrounded by 4 other houses that were being lived in. The back door was cracked open already so we didn't have to break anything open to get inside. Right as we walked through the back door, we were welcomed to the kitchen, which was destroyed by water damage and mold. Luckily, we brought masks and gloves to protect us from the smell and everything we touch in this home. Miscellaneous items were scattered everywhere across the floor and down the hall, which leads to the front door. This house is a 2-story house with an unfinished basement and looks like it was built in the mid-1900s. One thing I noticed when walking through the first floor was that lots of the furniture and decor were still present in the house, which was odd. It seems like whoever lived here has completely left everything the way it used to be, other than probably a few things, because the interior of the house was still decently bare. We found an old record player, a few old video game consoles with those massive joysticks you use, and lots of old books. These were the items we found just scattered across the first floor hallway. We haven't even gone upstairs yet. There was a narrow wood staircase that led up to the second floor. When walking up it, the silence was broken by the overwhelming sound of the creaking of the stairs. At the top, there are 2 rooms on either side of the stairs, each almost identical and symmetrical to the other. My friend and I decided to enter the left room first to see what was inside. The first thing I saw when entering was a massive gloss black piano in the middle of the floor. I was not sure why there was a piano upstairs and not on the first floor, but it was cool but ominous to see this. The thick carpet the piano sat on was a dark red color. Everything in this room was scattered across the floor as well. Most of the items were kids' toys and magazines, so I assumed that a whole family used to live here. Also, the one window that faces the backyard where we left our bikes was open when we walked in. This was odd but not surprising. The entire time here I just had a gut feeling that we weren't alone, even though we have at least glanced into every room, and this house has been for sale since 2006, it was 2017 at the time. This is where things escalated almost immediately. My friend was searching through the bookshelves across the room while I was looking at the piano. I wanted to lighten things up since we both felt slightly uneasy being here due to the state of the house it was in, so I wanted to play a tune on the piano. I played a few notes to some random song that I don't remember, but I was interrupted by a loud crash coming from downstairs. It sounded like something from the basement, which the staircase to it was right below the staircase to the second floor, if you can picture what I mean by that. We both stood silently looking at each other in disbelief until moments later, we heard loud stomping running down the hallway on the first floor coming towards the second floor staircase. Whatever this was, it sounded like it had big boots on, and the whole house shook after each foot smashed into the floor as it ran through the hallway. There were no voices or screaming coming from whatever this was. It was just running after us. We hear it continue to run at full speed through the house and up the creaky stairs. My friend and I were freaking out and had to make a decision fast. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't stopping at all on its way up to us. We remembered that the window next to us was open, so our only solution to getting out safely was to jump out the window. From the moment I started playing the piano to when we jumped out the window after hearing someone chasing us, it happened within mere seconds. Luckily, our bikes were right below where we jumped out, and all I could think about was getting out and across the highway as fast as possible. I got slightly hurt after jumping out the second-story window, but my adrenaline was through the roof and I wasn't thinking about it at that moment. My friend was right behind me the whole time, thankfully, and we both got on our bikes and left. I was shaken to tears the whole ride back home. To this day, I still have no idea what was in this house that chased us. We never heard the back or front door open, and everything in this house creaks, so we would have heard it. This was in the house the entire time we were there, and I don't know how we didn't see anything. I have a great feeling that this wasn't human, but who knows? I will never forget this day ever.